We're going to begin in Asia, where President Biden is taking a hard line against China.
That's right. Mr. Biden declaring on day 4 of his overseas trip that the United States stands with the people of Taiwan. The comments came in response to a question from CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes about how far he is willing to go to defend Taiwan from a possible Chinese invasion.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes. We support the one China policy. We support all that we've done in the past. But that does not mean that China has the ability, the jurisdiction to go in and use force to take over Taiwan.
David Sachs joins us now. He's a research fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. David, if you could just begin by reminding our viewers what China's perspective is on Taiwan and why the president's comments were so upsetting to the Chinese delegation.
Sure. I mean, China views Taiwan as a renegade province, essentially. It views Taiwan as an internal affair of China. And this is how it views the leftover aspect of its civil war. To China, its civil war is not over until Taiwan is reunited with the mainland.
Interesting. So, David, how exactly is the Chinese government reacting to these comments from President Biden?
I mean, they've reacted as one would expect. They're not happy with the comments at all. They object to what they believe is U.S. meddling in China's internal affair as they view it. And they also don't think that it's consistent with the U.S. One China policy, although I would argue it is fully consistent with the U.S. One China policy to pledge to come to Taiwan's defense in the face of Chinese aggression.
The president also rolled out the framework for an economic initiative. It could serve as an alternative to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which the U.S. pulled out of under former President Trump. What do you know about this new proposal?
Yeah, I mean, clearly this is the United States trying to have an economic strategy in Asia without joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but it's no substitute for what is now the CPTPP. China has applied to join CPTPP. It is by far the best regional trade agreement in Asia. And without the United States in it, we're going to see the region's economies move on without the U.S. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework is not a trade agreement. The United States is not going to discuss reducing tariffs and granting market access into the United States. So it's going to address things like climate change, digital trade, and supply chains. But I don't think that it's in any way a substitute for TPP. And when we look back on U.S. policy towards Asia in the last decade or so, I think the U.S. failure to join TPP will be viewed as the biggest blunder that we've made.
David, I just want to, go back really quickly to President Biden's comments, because in some ways they're perhaps not all that surprising when you consider what's going on in the world right now and obviously the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is sort of an indirect way of addressing that, correct?
Yeah, I think there is a sense that China might be taking the wrong lessons from Ukraine. There are certain similarities between Taiwan and Ukraine. Both are young democracies that face much more powerful authoritarian neighbors with eyes on their territory. So they could be sending a message for China not to try anything here or test our resolve. To me, China viewed the U.S. Not intervening on Ukraine's behalf directly as potentially what they could expect if they were to use aggression against Taiwan. So I fully support President Biden making this statement. I think it's an overdue adjustment to U.S. policy. I would say, though, that the White House now walking back the comment, this is the third time President Biden has said that. They've walked it back each time. I don't think that's helpful at all. And I think that actually undermines deterrence in the Taiwan Strait.
So, David, how hypothetical is the U.S. support for Taiwan? In other words, how close are we to a scenario where the U.S. would have to act on this policy, whatever it is, the president's or the official policy?
Yeah, so, Xi Jinping, the leader of China, has made clear that he seeks to achieve the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, as he terms it, by 2049. Taiwan is a critical component of that mission. You can't say that you've achieved the great rejuvenation while Taiwan remains away from the mainland. So that's one timeline people have put out. The former commander of the Indo-Pacific Command said that 2027 might be a date that China's looking for. I don't think that we really have a sense of what's going through Xi Jinping's mind and how close he could be to using force. But I do think it's clear that China is building the military capability to attack Taiwan. That's pretty clear. And I think that it could be at some point in the next 5 to 10 plus years. To me, Xi Jinping views Taiwan as a legacy issue. And you have to look at his own political calendar and his own sense that he, just like Putin with Ukraine, that he might want to seek this to establish his own legacy.
Yeah, it's important to keep that context in mind when, considering President Biden's words. Well, David Sacks, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.